Hello, this is F. Welcome to episode 24 of my Ottoman Empire Campaign. Last time, elements of the Central Army acted decisively, engaging a Commonwealth force south of Prague and plunging the Empire into yet another war. For honour, officially. Our Prussian allies are in peril, and we must reduce pressure on them before they're knocked out of the conflict. Courland has joined the Commonwealth in declaring war, and the Pope has stirred the Catholics of Italy against us over our occupation of Venice. Today we take stock of the Empire and redirect the Eastern Army to southern Galicia and Podolia to sweep aside a Russian force near Brzezany Fort. The balance of power in the region is fragile. One wrong move, and the campaign could unravel. Let's get into it. So we need to look at returning the Central Army back to Vienna so we can start replenishing our forces. But for now we'll just take a look and see what the frontier is like. Still no movement from the Bavarians, and the Polish we are now at war with, so we expect they'll start sending troops south, especially from Silesia and potentially Warsaw as well. From Poland proper they'll send troops south, and then I suspect in the far east around Minsk and Belarus they'll probably send troops through the forests down towards Kiev and put pressure on Kiev as well. That's something we definitely have to keep an eye on. But I think what we'll look to do is take out that Russian force in a moment. But as you can see again, there's no movement on the Russian border. I wonder if this is why things are on, when you have things set to normal difficulty, the AI does not move much at all, so that could be a potential issue. And then, as we are aware, the Italian states have declared war against us, so we'll need to look at moving our forces down south. Okay, so we were detected, so we weren't able to assassinate that unit. But I think what we might do here is end the turn. Yeah, we'll end the turn and we'll just see what transpires next. But we are starting to move our assassin into Azerbaijan just to keep an eye on any troops from Persia in that part of the world. But again, I think we're making steady progress. So there's workers on strike in Austria, so we don't have a rebellion, so that's good, even considering our troops were not fully there. Okay, we do have some recruitment, and we have some additional buildings done, and Brzezany has completed the school. Let's move our imam up to start conversions in Ascahan. We'll move that units. Okay, so not many troops that we can see at the moment. No additional troops from the Russian or Polish borders have moved towards our territory. We're still holding Kiev unrest at the moment. We'll need to look to build a madrasa in Kiev as well. Let's get our agents back to the mainland. We'll get them into Brzezany so they can start doing research. I think we'll look to do the European doctrine, get that underway, and we'll need to start developing the school as well. So let's get that last unit in there. So we'll have 3 units in Kazan or Konya and 3 units in Brzezany as well, and we'll eventually look to get rid of the school in Georgia. So we'll keep the research going. Obviously every time we do Enlightenment research we will have more unrest within our region, so we need to just keep on top of that and eventually get some troops into Istanbul as well. I'm not sure if there's any major reinforcements that we can do, but we do want to start replenishing the Central Army, get them back in. Get them back into play. Okay, so we can't get them fully in there, so we'll move them to Hungary. And we'll get the Central Army back in. At least with the additional troops we've recruited in Hungary, we have some additional forces there to stave off any potential issues. We've got the Western armies being divided somewhat. We have to still keep some troops nearby just to make sure that Bavaria doesn't assault Venice, and we've sent troops in to capture the port of Ravenna in northern Italy, so we've crossed the Po River. We still cannot take out that agent, so we'll keep them at bay for now. But yes, I expect the Italian state to send up a force soon to engage us at Ravenna. If not, they might bypass us and attempt to go for Venice. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that. And then I think with us declaring war against Poland, we need to keep up the pressure on the Poles and look for a full-scale invasion of Polish territory just to try and knock them back a bit. Let's get another madrasa up in Bulgaria just to help with the conversions, and we'll get the school upgrade as well. We'll get some additional economic upgrades in southern Greece and Crete as well. And that should do us for the time being, so I think it's time to engage the Russian force. So quite a small Russian force. We have 1 Cossack infantry and 2 cannons, so this should be relatively quick, and we'll look to engage the enemy now and take them out. Obviously our composition of units, currently we have around 6 Israeli irregular line infantry, 2 desert warriors, 2 Mamluk cavalry, 1 cannon, and then the general Beltesi Mehmet. So we'll engage the enemy in this region. So in the southern Galicia region, it's quite hilly with lots of snow at this time of year. So with the hill and terrain, we'll need to just make sure we position our troops at the right places so that their gunfire can hit the targets and we're not firing blanks into the sides of hills while our units are being taken out by the enemy. So we'll need to keep an eye on that through the course of the battle. And I think this one should be relatively quick. We can reposition our Mamluk cavalry to the side of the enemy, as we can see briefly with the cannons. The enemy cannons are in a fortified stance, so they're only going to be firing in one direction, which again we can use to our advantage to make sure that we hit the cannons from the side. And we'll just group our Israelis and get them out of the firing line as quickly as possible. Move them up. We'll try and hit the Russians on their left flank, and then bring in our cavalry to the right flank just to keep them under that pressure. So we'll just speed up time and just maneuver troops as quickly as we can into this area. And again, as you can see, the cannons are firing, but it does seem like some of them are getting disrupted by the terrain. So that's definitely going to be an issue on this battle map, specifically because the terrain will probably stop some of our bullets from hitting its targets. And I know usually in situations like this where the enemy have such small numbers of troops, we would usually look to auto-resolve the battle, but I just want to get as many battles in as possible just so we can try to control the level of casualties we are inflicted, and just to make sure that we're trying to keep that casualty level as low as possible. So we're just maneuvering our troops up. They have some protection from the small settlement between us and the cannons, but as we said, once they reach a certain angle, the cannons won't be able to have any effect on them whatsoever. And again, the enemy troops have only the 1 Cossack line infantry, who have now turned to face the direction of the bulk of our Israeli line infantry. So once they're in position, we'll move them forward. So we'll move them forward into range of the Russian cannons, and then that should enable us to take as many of the Russian cannon units out as possible. I think there's about 24 men per cannon squad, so yeah, the closer our troops are, the better we can engage the Russians and take them out ASAP. Oh, you can hear the troops marching. Come on, Israelis, that's it, for the Sultan and the Empire. You'll fight these Cossacks and send the Russians back to whence they came. I definitely cannot wait for the modern line, the Nazim-e Sadit. They'll be so cool on the battlefield. So the Israelis are the current backbone of the Ottoman Empire's forces, and they have been doing the heavy lifting, especially with our expansion into Central Europe and Russia. But I think once we have the more modern Nazim-e Sadit, we should be able to have more of an impact and reduce the casualties that we see against the European line infantry. So we're just manoeuvring our troops up now. Hopefully they're in range to attack these cannons, and let's see what happens. Oh yeah, look at those Russians fall. Okay, a few taken out in the first volley. Let's see if there's any further impact while they recharge or reload. I think we'll take half the squadron up to engage the Cossacks, and we'll just manoeuvre 2 of the battalions really close by to the Russian cannons. And we can see that between the 2 cannons there is some stakes, so we just need to be mindful of those, especially with our Mamluk cavalry. We don't want them to get too close to those stakes, just in case they suffer badly on that. Okay, we'll manoeuvre our troops up. The Russian cannons on the left flank have broken, and we continue to move our Israelis up towards the Russian right flank. There is some fire exchange between our Israelis and the Cossacks. Some additional cannon units from the Russian side have fallen, and our cavalry is coming in to finish them off. We'll just take some of our Israelis and convert them into melee combat so they can support our Mamluk cavalry. We'll get our general in as well to take out some fleeing Russian forces, and this should be a very quick mop-up situation, just to take out the remaining troops from the Russian forces. Come on, Mamluks. What is going? Come on, guys. You guys aren't even moving. Come on. You guys got stuck on that for some reason. Oh dear. We've got a few dead Israelis, so that's not ideal, and let's see if we can just hold back some of our troops and just get the Mamluks to do their thing. So our general's moving up. They'll take out the other fleeing units. I think they're units of cannon. And yeah, we're just speeding up the time now just to end this battle as swiftly as we can. So that was a good battle. I think probably could have auto-resolved it, and the enemy general is dead. But nonetheless, we managed to get some additional Russian forces off the campaign map. So that will open up the road to Lwów in Galicia and Podolia. So casualty-wise, so only a few casualties, 18 units killed by the enemy, 23 lost in total. That's about 5 units down due to friendly fire. We lost about 1.5% of our army, so very good casualty, very low casualty rates, so that's really good. And it's pretty much for every Ottoman soldier that was killed, we managed to take down 11 Russian soldiers as well. However, we did start the battle with 1,248 more soldiers in the Russians, so they were at a significant disadvantage number-wise. But overall, the battle went successfully, and it looks like another Russian detachment has appeared on the map. So I think we'll move our forces into the fort of Berezany before just so we can take stock of this Russian force that has appeared from the forests. We can't recruit anyone else in Kiev, so we might need to just go and attack the Russian force and just try and push them back, if nothing else. So just considering their unit composition, so they have 1 line infantry, 2 cannons, 2 Cossacks, a militia unit of sword, and the general is an archery cavalry. So again, another small detachment, only looking at about 748 men strong. So that should be relatively easy to take out, and again the balance of power is in our favour. So the terrain again fairly hilly. We'll just have to be mindful of our weapons, our positioning of our troops, and we're already under cannon fire from the enemy. So we'll move our troops forward. We are just diverting some of our troops on our left flank, just to manoeuvre them towards the city. We also need to move our general, just so they don't get attacked, but as you can see the terrain is quite hilly in some parts, so we'll just move our troops towards the city, as well as our Mamluks. And we continue to receive a barrage from the enemy cannons, but it looks like none of our units have been impacted at the moment. So again, just going back to our composition for this battle, we have around 6 Israeli irregular line infantry. We still have our 2 desert warriors that we started off earlier in the campaign, 2 Mamluk cavalry, our cannon, and then General Brzezany Mehmet is continuing the fight against the Russian forces in Galicia and Podolia. So we do want to try and become more aggressive as battles go on. So we're just trying to divide our forces up. That way we can hit the Russian units on multiple fronts, and we should be able to take them out easy and keep them in disarray. So again, eventually we'll look to upgrade our units across all army detachments. Currently this unit, or these units, form part of what we have called the Eastern Army. I think once we have an army in the Middle East to defend Baghdad, this army will be repurposed to the Northern Army. And although they won't be as north as the Central Army, I think we'll still keep the Central Army as it is for now, unless something changes in the future. But that's sort of the direction I think we're going to go in. So we're just manoeuvring our forces. We've got our desert warriors. They should come in on the Russian left flank, and again the Russian cannons are in a stable format, or in a fortified format, so there shouldn't be any risk to our desert warriors if they get in close enough. So that should play to our advantage. So the terrain is still helping to reduce the impact of the Russian cannons, so that's playing to our advantage. Again, we're not losing as many troops as we might have. And with on our left flank, we can see that some of our Israelis have made it into the village. So we'll manoeuvre through the buildings and use the buildings as cover for our troops as we try and get closer to the enemy line. So it should be noted that the Russians do have 2 lots of cannons. We have our desert warriors on the far left flank of the Russian line, and we have our Israelis and Mamluks on the right flank of the Russian line. So we'll look to harass the right flank. That's where the majority of the soldiers are currently concentrated, and hopefully using the buildings for cover will enable us to reduce the casualty list. And I think if we can capture the building, that will provide our troops with some additional cover as well. Okay, so we continue to maneuver our forces towards the Russian right flank, and our desert warriors are moving slowly towards the Russian left flank so they can engage the Russian cannons that continue to harass our units on the hill. We'll maneuver our cannons to try and take out the Russian cavalry if possible. Okay, there were some good shots there, but I don't know if any Russian cavalry have been taken out. Most likely not. And our forces are just capturing the building to provide some additional cover to our units. So if you've made it this far into the video, I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on the factions of Empire Total War. I would love for you to leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. For me, I've always enjoyed playing as the Prussians or Austrians, mostly because they focused on one theatre. I do like the Indians as well, playing as the Maratha Confederacy, predominantly because you can accumulate a lot of wealth eventually and focus on taking out loads of trade lanes, or at least taking over the trade lanes. But the Ottoman Empire is a favourite of mine as well, predominantly because they have that mix of east and west, where you can get the European doctrine and get some line infantry, as well as the dragoon cavalry in terms of the Nazim Isaid cavalry. So I do quite like the Ottoman Empire, and again they harken back to the Romans, so I do quite like that part of the world. So our forces have moved up, and we should be able to engage the enemy shortly. Let's just get those line infantry into position, or the irregular line infantry into position. I think we'll have one in this gap here, and we'll take one slightly north or to the right, in line with those with the cavalry units, so we can try and take out the cavalry as well as the cannons on the Russian right flank. Suspect we'll still get quite a few casualties, but it looks like the Russians are manoeuvring a lot of backwards and forwards. Our units are getting some pot shots off, so that's quite good. But again, we are a bit slow in our manoeuvres. We're not putting enough pressure on the Russians at this point. We have our desert warriors in play, so we'll just move them forward to just try and take out those cannons. And we can see that the remaining Russian line, or infantry I should say, are manoeuvring into our direction. And I think based on where our troops are, the units in the building will not really suffice enough, so we'll need to just push them forward and just try and engage the Russian forces as much as possible. Okay, looks like we'll start having a transaction of fire between one of our Israeli units and the Russian units. And our desert warriors are currently firing upon the Russian cannons, and still the Russian infantry are not moving to engage our desert warriors, so that is good at the moment. We are putting pressure on the Russian cavalry. They seem to just be manoeuvring just outside of gunfire range. Oh wait, it looks like the Russians are coming. Nope, they've stopped again. So we'll just manoeuvre our troops around. We just need to try and put this additional pressure on the Russian forces, just really take out their right flank. I know we're going to have a lot of casualties at this rate, but oh, the Russian archer cavalry have fired their shots into our line. They have lost some cavalry at the moment, but yeah, let them go down. Okay, the Russian cannons have now been taken out on the left flank. We'll manoeuvre our desert warriors just to put pressure on the Russian left as well. Let's see, can we get our generals to take out the cavalry units? Not cavalry, the cannon units. So we'll send our general out there and we'll move our troops forward. And hopefully before our troops get there we can take out the Russian cannon. There's still quite a lot of Russian cavalry units in play, so we definitely aren't taking them out that quick, even though that's such close range. Oh my god, I think we've had some casualties in terms of friendly fire potentially. Okay, the enemy general is being killed. That should bolster our morale and reduce the enemy morale as well. And the Russian forces don't seem to know what they're doing. They're going to square formation, which is perfect. So the Russian cannons are in retreat. Some Russian line units have gone into square formation, so we should be able to pick them off quite easily. So we'll just maneuver our forces closer and if we have any casualties or friendly fire, we'll just have to deal with it at this stage. We just try and take out as many Russian soldiers as we can. Come on guys, let's see what you can do. You need to be able to take out these guys quicker. We'll move our Desert Warriors up. We've got some fleeing Russian forces as well. And our central units of Israelis have come down into the fray, and they should be able to provide additional suppressing fire against Russian forces. Again, our Desert Warriors are hitting the Russians from behind. Or not even from behind, I should say they're hitting them from the flank, so that should put additional pressure on those units. We'll continue to move our line infantry up, just to try and put pressure on the remaining forces of the Russians. And we have our Mamluk cavalry ready to run down any units that get too far from our line infantry. Okay, so that's pretty much the battle. The Russians have now broken. We should be able to get our Mamluk cavalry in to try and take out as many of the Russian forces as possible. And again, the more we can kill in the on the battlefield, the less should appear in the campaign map. So if we can try and take out as many Russians as possible, that should reduce support for defense of the Polish territories from the Russians if we can take out as many Russian troops as possible. And again, if we can keep the Russians at bay, we can then potentially march into Polish territory uncontested, at least up until we get to the borders of Warsaw and Poland proper. We don't have any wish to go into the territories of Belarus and Minsk and Vilnius, so we'll have to just try and see if we can do defensive actions to keep the Polish at bay. As soon as we've captured Lwów and Podolia, Lwów and Warsaw, we'll then look to try and sue for peace with the Polish. If we capture any additional Polish territory, we can give those regions to the Prussians as our allies. They can act as a buffer between us and our enemies, and again, it just supports the Prussians so they are not kicked out of the conflict too early. Again, the Prussians could definitely be useful to us against the French at some point, especially when we attack Spain. Okay, so looking at the casualty list, so looks like we've lost about 109 men, so not many men, or less men than I thought we would, but it was about 7%, so still within our margin of error, so below that 10% threshold. And it looks like we had 0 men killed due to friendly fire, so that's really good. The Russian force, however, had about 15 men either killed through friendly fire or desertion, and we killed about 630 Russian soldiers. So again, in this particular battle, for every Ottoman soldier killed, we took 6 Russian soldiers with us. So we'll look to capture the region of Galicia and Podolia next turn. So for now, I think it's just a case of rebuilding any buildings that need to be reconstructed, replenish our troops where we can. We need to monitor the unrest across several of our regions, so looking at religious conversions, ramping that up, and looking at getting recruitment of units that can act as a policing force, just to reduce that civil unrest in those regions and reduce any chance of future rebellion. But for now, we'll keep things as they are and continue our push into Polish territory to meet those objectives. So for now, I think we'll end the video here. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments on the progression of the Ottoman Empire and anything you may have done differently. This is F, signing out. Goodbye.